Happy New Year and welcome to Saturday's Warrior, the channel where we talk BYU Big 12 college football, which of course means realignment. And as we get into college basketball season, we'll certainly be covering a lot of that. So thank you for joining us. As always, we got Adam here with us to review the bowl season, what we learned, and also take a little peek at the ensuing college football championship game coming up here. So,
happy to be here, Trevor.
Well, thank you. So, thanks for joining us. We have been on a little bit of a hiatus over the holidays, but thanks for coming back and joining us. And please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us a lot and get and reach even more viewers. So, Adam, so first of all, what are your takes on the bowl season? Obviously, BYU sat out, which is always a bummer, but in some ways it was kind of stress-free. We could just sit back and relax. Did you get to catch a lot of games?
I caught a few here and there. There were some good ones. I love bowl season. It's a fun time. It's fun to celebrate. It's tough to see what's happening with some players opting out and the transfer portal and the chaos. I think NCAA's got to address that so that we move that stage back and people jump into the transfer portal after bowl season. Coaches start to move after bowl season. They've got to solve that problem because there needs to be some continuity in bowl season. But either way, it's fun. Celebration for some teams. You get some huge surprises. Teams that really have no business coming out and playing as well as they do come out and surprise you. Those are always fun. And then you get other games like Georgia, Florida State, where everybody kind of saw a mile away what was coming there. But overall, it's been a fun bowl season. Semifinals were amazing yesterday, just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So you made several points. I feel, I guess, strongly about that in terms of the transfer portal, because it speeds up everything, and it's really, if it really is about the athletes, I think fine, like have the transfer portal open and allow them to do that, but don't make them choose between being able to play in that bowl game, which really for me it takes away from a lot of what these bowl games are supposed to mean. Because if one team is, a lot of people have entered the transfer portal or whatever, they're a shell of the team that they were during the regular season. And I'm sure it's difficult because they're dealing with also the chance for people to get enrolled in the new school by winter. And so that's probably the one hang up. But other than that, I've just, why would you have it so early? Because it really messes with this bowl season. We already have, which I do love bowl season, but we already have far too many bowl games. And then
I don't know about that. We might have to debate that one a little bit.
It's so many and so many, maybe if they have one more, maybe BYU gets into a bowl game. But no, I feel like there's so many. When I was in college, I come home from on winter break or whatever, and I would sit there and I would watch like every single bowl game, and I love it. Now, I catch what I can. I definitely try a little bit harder, go more out of my way to catch some of the big, more enticing matchups, which there were several, but a lot of them I really had no interest in. And if it would look like it was close late, I would turn it on. But I mean, yeah. So I don't know what's your argument for having this many bowl games.
Oh, I think traditionally, if you've got a winning season, or if you're 6-6, you're going to a bowl game. And I'm not seeing a lot of teams with a losing record going to a bowl game. There was one this year, and so I like that as the standard. You get a winning record, you get to 6-6, you go to a bowl game. I wouldn't want more than that because I do think it takes away from it. The names and the brands are ridiculous, but it's just, to me, it's fun. It's a celebration of the team. They kind of earn that stamp of approval by going to a bowl game, and I don't mind more college football. I'm not watching all the games either. I keep an eye on them, but more football is never a bad thing to me.
No, you're right. I mean, I'm excited, but they just become kind of glorified exhibition games. I mean, most of them are fairly meaningless.
For sure, and with the expanded playoff, even more so. Right? I mean, you're going to get to a 12-team playoff. You're probably going to go to 16 teams eventually. I don't know that it expands too far past that. And so then what's the bowl game that everyone else is playing for? It's meaningless, right? It's sort of a celebration of your season, and but I'm okay with that. I'm okay that if you got a winning record, you get to go to a bowl game. The fans, if they want, they get to travel and see a new destination, get teams that match up against each other that don't traditionally play against each other. And like I said, it's more football. So I don't mind it. I hope that aspect continues, but I do think the games become more meaningless as the playoff expands because that's really what it's about. That's who has something on the line are those 12 teams in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, for the players out there, like if I'm a player, I in some ways, like, yeah, obviously there's some bowl games you'd rather attend than others, but in another way, like some of these guys, most of these guys aren't going on to play professionally or do
Right.
anything. It's like this is
Right.
their last chance to play. And so the more games you can get, the better because
That's right.
this is what you have. And I get that. And it's still a win is a win. It's a chance for kids to continue to make an impact for their team, get in the records or whatever, they're working towards. But then also I know it's extra practices for the team. So all that's good stuff. I just feel like it's so many and then with FBS is getting bigger. There's more and more teams there. So I guess the argument is you have more bowl games to include more of those
Yeah.
teams winning records. Although I wouldn't hate it if there were teams that were 500 that didn't make bowl games, that it really makes it, you have to earn it a little bit more.
Hmm.
What I find fascinating though is and maybe it's exacerbated by the transfer portal and people sitting out or whatever of these games because there's so much variance from what we'd seen in the regular season. I think by the time we get to the bowls, but how unpredictable some of these matchups really can be. They go completely differently than what is expected, which is always exciting. It's fun to see when
Yeah.
you can see some of those matchups, which we actually did. So you not only beat me in the regular season. I can't remember what our final record was once we even included I think I closed the gap a little bit during the conference championships, but anyway, you beat me by probably 5+. And then it looked like you beat me by just a couple, but it was enough for your percentile to be like 20 percentile higher than mine. So
It was just a couple games. I will note that the password to get into this group was Adam will lose. So I want to make sure that was clear. The obvious smack talk, even we were just collaborating on bowl picks. Um,
I thought maybe just like forcing you to type that out might like start messing with
yeah,
you.
yeah,
And
just get in my head for
yeah,
sure.
exactly.
So I was surprised you picked against some Big 12 teams. You picked against Texas Tech. Um, that one surprised me a little bit. Um, and I thought you'd take them over Cal. Um, and who was the other one? Oh yeah, you picked Georgia Tech over UCF, which was a good pick actually. You beat me on that one. Um, I was positive UCF was going to come away with the victory on that one. That one was an easy pick for me, um, but they couldn't pull that one out. Georgia Tech made a statement. Maybe they'll make a run to the ACC next year.
We'll see. Georgia Tech I went with just because they had some surprising games against some good teams this season. And I don't know really anything about their team other than, those moments. And wasn't it, I think it was, I guess the most I watched was the very end of the Miami game. That was Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
So
Which I thought was more Miami than Georgia Tech, but maybe I was wrong. I
yeah,
mean,
but
that's
when I saw that game, I thought it was an anomaly. But they went on to have some other good wins and other close games. And then Texas Tech was just all over the place, and Cal kind of ended strong. And I don't know. So usually when I go through and I try not to look at any of the betting odds or the what anything's predicting. I try to go through clean and really look at it and I even do some analysis and be like, okay, where does this team fall in this category? And this year I was like, no, I'm going through and I am trying to pick this. I'm going to be try to be as unemotional about it and just select, really who I think and go through quickly. Cause I was like, there's so many teams that are probably sitting players or, going for the draft or
yeah,
the portal that
yeah.
I was like, I can't research all that. I'm not going to try to pretend to know all that. I'm just going to go with what I know. And honestly, I find that one of my tricks, which didn't come out, pan out this year. I mean, I was above 500, but whoop-de-doo. So that was really looking at a lot of times is who wants to be in that game because
Yeah.
oftentimes there's a team that really does not want to be there and the other one
Yep.
wants to be there. And a
Who's
lot of
excited to be
times
there?
you pick the team that's excited to be there, and I think you'll win that matchup more than not.
Yeah. 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 There were some good ones, especially towards the end of the season. I really liked one thing that I pay close attention to is that the big name quarterback transfer. So I think it was Arizona and Oklahoma that tipped the scales for me. Um, where I really liked Arizona in that one because they played so strong towards the end of the year. But then you had Oklahoma, their quarterback transferred, and so who are they going to start in that game? So I was paying attention to some of the bigger name quarterbacks that transferred, or if a coach leaves and they're going coachless into the bowl game. Those are the ones I'll pay a little bit closer attention to see how they're going to fare. That was the way with Texas A&M and Oklahoma State. Great matchup there. Texas A&M may have even had a talent edge, but they're coming in without a coach, and that's going to be a tough matchup to win. So,
And I've
but
seen
really,
and that's another one. Is I look at, okay, who's lost their coach? Are they in disarray? But sometimes that's actually a rallying cry. Like I've seen teams that have lost their coach, but they come out and they play on fire and winning blowouts or whatever. So
yeah,
it's not surefire, but yeah, a lot of times it kind of shows maybe the mindset of the team going into the game.
yeah. But look out for Arizona next year. I'll tell you, that is one bowl game I watched, and Arizona is so fast. Their plays happen so fast. They're running plays. Their offensive line explodes off the ball. They're super athletic. They'll pull a guard who gets 10 yards outside of the line of scrimmage, just super fast, and they're blocking downfield. I mean, I was amazed. I hadn't watched them this year. I noticed them winning more and more. They're coming into the Big 12 next year. That is not a team I'm excited to play next year when they come to Provo. They are really, really good.
Yeah, they were not supposed to be one of the teams we were worried about coming
Yeah,
in. Well, sure,
yeah,
join us, and we'll get an extra win on the schedule. But yeah, they are scary, and BYU's had some fun matchups with them over the last several years in independence, and I'm not so sure they're going to be quite as fun.
yeah, yeah,
And we play Arizona, I think 3 out of 4 years, so it's tough. That was a game I watched, and it was funny because typically as I watch these games, I'm pulling for all Big 12 teams, and this one I was like, well, either way is kind of a win because technically, if Oklahoma wins, it goes as a win column for the conference in the conference championship bowl matchup, and but really, if you think of it, OU's already out the door. Probably in
yep.
terms of football, they're already moving on, and Arizona's coming in.
Arizona's the real Big 12 team.
And so, yeah, so I was watching it and I was like, no, I want Arizona. And that was just an exciting game. And then I wasn't even thinking about this, but if look at SMU, if they're struggling against Boston College going into ACC, like they're
Yep, yep.
maybe tough sledding for them.
It could be.
But any other shockers here? I mean, there's a few that we were both wrong. Man, that the American had a tough go of it this year. I mean, losing
Yeah,
3 of your powerhouse programs, and it looks like
yeah.
something struggled.
It was tough. I think again later in bowl season was a little bit more exciting as you um, go down towards the semifinals. Just a really fun end to bowl season. That's where I started to get my picks a little bit stronger. Um, but you had a lot of blowouts leading up to the semifinal, except for LSU Wisconsin. That was a great game, and LSU coming up with 3 sacks in a row to win the end of that game. I feel like Brian Kelly needed that. They're not going to run him out of LSU yet, but he's had a couple years in the program now, and he needs to take that to the next level. He's got to compete for an SEC championship here. Obviously, Jaden Daniels had a great year, but he's got to take that program. He's got to take the next step with it. And so I think that was a big win for them. Speaking of not having your starting quarterback, that just programmatically that seemed like a big win outside of the semifinals. LSU needed that.
Yeah, so we were a family and stuff at the time, so wasn't catching the game, but early on it looked like Wisconsin was taking care of business. So it was a great comeback win, but LSU should not have been in that position in the first place. I mean,
Yeah.
the Big 12 or Big 10 West is not that deep, and so for them to
No.
struggle against Wisconsin was not a great look.
Yeah.
And then,
But you came away really strong in the semifinal, picking both those
yeah, I
matchups.
mean, since Iowa stayed on, I was locking in some of these bigger matchups here late in the game, so that helped me out a lot. But I mean, everyone saw Oregon coming. Tennessee probably wasn't much of a surprise. Right here, I mean, I was going with Michigan as a homer pick. I was nervous, and rightfully so. I mean, it goes to overtime, and
Yeah.
what an overtime! I mean, that Michigan
Yeah.
touchdown, that run was just incredible. And then, uh, but Washington, Texas, what another
That
incredible.
was crazy. The last minute of that game was just astounding. Washington had that thing wrapped up. You had the unfortunate injury that basically gives Texas another 30 seconds, right? I mean, that's 50 yards in at that point in the game. Um, and then to come down to it where Texas has got so many opportunities to get in the end zone, and it's Washington's defense that comes up with it. Um, I was just that whole game, the way Penix drops that deep ball, they could beat anybody. I think Michigan is going to win it all, but Washington could beat anybody because the way Michael Penix Jr. drops those dimes downfield, the deep, deep ball. He is so accurate. It is so impossible to defend. I don't care how good you are as a secondary. Under modern college football rules and how little you're allowed to rough up the receiver downfield, and how you have to be looking back for the ball to avoid a pass interference penalty, all that plays in favor of Washington. All the rules play in favor of Washington, and Penix is so accurate. I couldn't believe it. I have not seen a college quarterback do that in years. How over and over and over again, he just drops it in the perfect slot, 20, 30, 40 yards downfield, jaw-dropping throws. I watched Washington a couple times this year, but I've never seen that many over and over again. It was so impressive to watch.
Yeah, he is good. And Washington, as scared as I was to go up against Nick Saban, and with his team really peaking late, it was not much of a consolation for getting the 1 seed. Getting that Alabama team coming in. Uh,
Yeah.
I think as a Michigan fan, I definitely am more nervous. I think going against Washington, who everyone counted out against Oregon and beat them, for a second time.
Twice. Yeah.
and and then took care of business against the Texas team. I mean, granted, it was a good game, and Texas made a good push there at the end. I mean, it really came down to that last play, which was just fantastic. But I mean, for a while, it looked like Washington. Oh, I mean, Washington was in control of the game. Texas just played really well to stay in it and give themselves a shot. So yeah, I'm expecting, because so often, which is so disappointing, is you get these top matchups in these semifinal games, and so many of them are just blowouts. I mean, you just think of how many. I can't remember. I actually went through and counted out of all the, ever since the playoffs started, how many of those games, including the championship, resulted in blowouts, and it was
Mm.
somewhere, I think, around a third of the games or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is just way too many when you're getting good teams of that caliber. But
Yeah.
um, these ones did not disappoint. So hopefully we see another great matchup in the final. Yeah, I see you haven't made your pick again. Again, I went with the homer pick with Michigan, but what do you think? Who do you think comes away with it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Michigan in this one. It just feels like they're too dominant and they're so clutch when it matters most. I think they'll have a better offensive performance than they did against Alabama, um, and I think they'll need it. Their defense is so good that I think it's going to be just enough to beat Washington. And it just feels like Michigan is able to step up to the moment. And it's funny because you look back and Washington struggled against some bad teams this year. And still came away with the victory. And so you don't want to play a close game against Washington. They always win. Um, but I don't know that this one will be that close. I think Michigan will come out and impose their will. They've been prepping for this. Their season, their veteran team. They've been in the playoffs 2 years in a row. Um, and I don't think Washington's intimidated by the moment, but that experience that Michigan brings to the table is going to be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, Washington has. This is probably going to be the toughest defense that Washington's faced this year. I mean, I'd have to go through and look at it. I mean, Michigan would
By
be
a
the
mile.
toughest
Yeah.
defense almost anybody's faced
Yeah.
this year. They're one of
I
the
think they're
best.
number one in college football on defense. They're
And I mean, some of it's their schedule too, right? There was a lot of criticism about that, and they did, obviously they're a team that can put up points, but then once they got into kind of the meat of their schedule, their scoring dropped a bit. But certainly a team that can score, and but on the other hand, they also look pretty sloppy last night. Was it last or yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. It's all running together now. But yeah, they looked a bit sloppy too. And so you really want to see them tighten things up a little bit going into that game against Washington, because it feels like Penix, given the opportunity, is going to be able to take advantage of that. If whatever, short fields or missing kicks or things like that, that you're going to pay for that.
Yeah, they got to fix special teams issues for sure. But I think they will. I think that's, they stumbled there. They'll have that short up. Harbaugh's going to have his team ready to play, and I expect Michigan to come out on top.
So which of the two games, which was a better win?
Whew, that's tough to say. I think you got to hand it to Michigan because Alabama has so much history behind them. And anytime you're beating Saban in a game like that, I think that's the better win. Not to take anything away from Washington or Steve Sarkisian, what Texas has done this year, but that's Texas's first time in the playoff. That's them overperforming this year and really making a statement season. And so hats off to Texas. But Alabama in the semifinal is a way tougher out than Texas in the semifinal. So I think you got to hand it to Michigan.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, what this playoff was really what college football should be. And it's exactly an example of what I hate about all this consolidation of conferences. Because you look at this was two essentially Big Ten SEC matchups, as opposed to having, you got your Southeast, your Midwest, your Southwest, and your West Coast teams, really representing all of America. Now it's down to essentially two conferences having Big Ten SEC matchup, which when you look through it at that lens, it's a little disheartening.
It is a little bit, but I think the 12-team playoff resolves that. It does. And you know what? If at that point it's Big Ten and SEC every year, well, then you know what? They're the ones who are pulling the recruitment and the coaching and whatever else to get there. But I like the 12-team format because I think the Big 12 will make some noise. Not every year, but I think you'll see a Big 12 team there in the title game. On occasion, I think you'll see some G5 teams make some noise. It's just so much more fun when you get to that 12-team format. It's the way it should be. And even though a lot of years, I think you'll see Big Ten and SEC. They've got some huge dominant programs in there, and they're going to make the title game. But I'm okay with that. You open it up and you give everybody a chance.
Yeah, I mean, one of the arguments, I guess, against the playoff that I've heard and more towards keeping it out is, like you mentioned, the G5. Like, there's a chance that a G5 school will be able to show up and pull an amazing upset, a la Boise State, Oklahoma, years ago, or whatever, and that's exciting everybody. The chance of them being able to do it for multiple rounds is low, but I'm also of the mind that well, you give them a shot. That's why you play the game and let them at least play for it. And that the more rounds you go, the more advantageous it is for those bigger programs, those blue bloods, because of their depth, which is probably true. But I think still having the access is more important. And it's going to be a lot of these same matchups, but then there's something more on the line than just a win-loss.
Yep, exactly.
So I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, I expect BYU to be there most years. No, I'm kidding. But,
right.
I hope that at some point they do get back to a New Year's Day bowl. I think it's been, since 98? So
96, yeah. It's been too
96.
long.
Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, well, great. It has been a lot of fun bowl season. A lot of good matchups here especially in the later stages with these big names. And so I look forward to the championship game. Hopefully we get another good one.
It's going to be good.
All right. Well, thanks. And as always, please be sure to like the video and subscribe as we cover college football in the offseason and also a lot of college basketball. And we'll see you next time. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.